I see here in your notes that as far as like I'm commenting as far as like on the soundtrack that is happening during this scene, and then I just see all caps yordle prostitutes. Priorities.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, a very special episode. The beginning of our Arcane special, we promised it, and here it is, recap of episode 1. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hedge.
I am not the other host. I am the conductor of the hype train. And it's been a minute since I got to dust off where the coals were sitting.
Yeah.
And start feeding the machine.
Feed the machine.
Arcane time, baby.
But listen, one thing doesn't change, and that's housekeeping. Yeah, Riot. We saw what you did. Hedge, you want to tell them what they did?
Okay. So Riot clearly has been listening to some quality podcast material because they opened the Arcane watch party. If you're on Twitter, hashtag Arcane watch party. They opened the watch party.
He's a plant.
By saying housekeeping and mentioning where all of the social medias for Riot Game and all of the social medias for the different games under Riot Games. We see you, Riot. We see you.
Yeah, so do this. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all our info. It has everywhere you can listen. You choose the one you like. Follow us on the platform you prefer. Send us an email at podcastcore@gmail.com. Leave a like, follow, and in your short review, you're our alibi and our witnesses. You're going to be on our side when we take this case to court. You know what? I already screwed it up. I think we're probably going to lose. We're probably going to lose the lawsuit.
You were supposed to represent us. Like, you're the only lawyer we could afford, right? We're screwed. Never mind. It's a property of Rivington. We actually stole it from him. Official.
But as always, do us a favor and tell a friend to fight to survive by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast. Let's get into it. Arcane episode 1 recap. Okay, so we start off with, and this is going to be a quick one. We're going to give you what we know from episode 1. We haven't watched episode 2 yet. We're going to do that after this one. Keep your eyes open. But we start off with...
We could not wait to record.
I may be extreme, right? But I'm going to put genocide here. I think it's more of a raid situation where it looks like we have Wardens raiding a Zaun city or town. But I was so hype and adrenaline's rushing through my blood. I'm like, they're starting off with genocide.
and like the scene definitely is like spelled out like kind of genocide-esque. I got that same vibe, and it wasn't until the end of the episode that you really kind of get what Riot was trying to translate there, which is, the oppression of the local authorities over the Zaunites. So like, especially because like the thing that I noticed first was that the smog in the city, because we know from all the lore as far as like Piltover and Zaun is that all of the fumes get funneled into Zaun. So this is clearly filmed, like it's first in Zaun. That's clearly the chem smoke coming from Piltover, but it looked very natural. It looked like smog. I grew up in Atlanta. I know smog. That looked like smog. So I was kind of like expecting when they would show that like to be a little cartoony, but they showed it like right away and it looked kind of natural. But so that was the first thing that stuck out to me. And then it's like, oh no, they're at war and they're killing everybody.
Something bad's happening. It reminds me of the police riots that we've seen in recent memory with tear gas and all that stuff, but played up for the environment. And the next scene we get out of that is we get to see Vander, which, he's been revealed in posters. We kind of know a bit about him so far, but the part that stands out is you see his shadow as he's essentially defending these couple of kids, which we find out is Powder and Vi, and he has gauntlets on, small gauntlets.
Defending.
Defending. What did I say?
Defending. You said defending. I'm not standing by that.
Oh, you think he was involved?
I think, yeah, like he wasn't defending these kids. You
Okay.
don't defend children that are outside of an altercation by beating someone's face in while they're already on the ground. Like
True.
he was like one step shy from asking the guy to bite the curb. So I don't.
Hey,
I didn't.
I'm just
I
telling
didn't
you what
feel
I saw,
defend.
bro. I'm just
Yeah,
telling you what I saw, bro.
because I definitely got the vibe of like of him just beating the crap out of this cop and then turning
Yeah.
around and getting that snap back to reality off of the faces of these innocent kids.
Yeah.
But back to the gauntlets, they're definitely not Vi's gauntlets.
No.
Not even close. Like these were, reasonable.
Yes. Yeah, these were regulation. We get introduced to the two main characters, obviously, Jinx and Vi. Young Jinx is referred to as Powder here, and you can definitely tell that she's more traumatized than Vi is. There's an age gap, which is, I wouldn't say significant, but definitely like an older sister, younger sister vibe. One is definitely too young to be taking in this visual. And we do get a shot of a woman who appears to be dead. And she has blue hair. We don't know who that lady is, but we can assume probably related to this traumatized Jinx. We don't know yet. What do you think?
Like the fact that they're showing all of this for Powder and that she doesn't snap into Jinx right away.
Yeah.
Powder's a strong kid, and like they're working hard just in these first opening scenes to translate that Vi Powder have a rough life. And it, does build some character, but I would have snapped.
True.
100%. Dead mom right there. Very next adult you see is asking another adult to kiss the curb.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
That hard life shifts into some action. We get some street action in the daytime on top side, which is obviously Piltover. Remember, Piltover is kind of divided, if you wanted to think about it, into like 4 sections. You have top side, you have the sewers, which is like the lower part of Piltover. Then you have Zaun under that. And then there's the depths of Zaun, which is like the deep parts of the Pacific. No one goes there. Right.
Yeah, and once we get a little later into the show too, they're even like telling us like the different like sections of Zaun too. I do love the way that it's presented in the show. It gives it a look of like a city that could actually be built instead of it just being like this, this city with subterranean levels.
Yes.
Which is like kind of how when reading it, I've always put it in my mind. But this looked a lot more natural as far as like, like a top of a hill and just working your way down.
Yeah. And so these kids are out in the day. They're doing their first, I guess, big mission from the way Vi kind of presents it. She's planned up this thing. We're going to do a big heist, get some stuff, make some money, and, have some fun along the way, but don't tell Vander. So they end up breaking into a place which is highly sophisticated. There's plenty of like notes on a chalkboard. There's plenty of high-tech stuff. We do get to see that the way Powder kind of takes in what she's seeing means she's a little more technical than the rest of the kids. She's shyer, she keeps to herself, she's more technical. The rest are kind of more of a bruiser type, right? Hardened street type kid. But they have personality. They all seem like good kids, that just have a hard life. And this goes wrong because they get the stuff. The person who owns the stuff comes back earlier than expected, starts trying to get in. And one of the things they pick up is what, Hetch?
We get our first look at hextech. And as far as with this, like they are little spheres of hextech. So I'm not sure if it's like going to be their example of a full hextech core, but we do have like little fragments of hextech cores, and Powder is, getting rushed out the door because the tenant is back early, and Powder just grabs as many of them as she can, stuffs them in her pocket, goes to make a run for it. One of them drops out of the pocket, and especially for our purposes on this show, we have gone over a lot of champions that use hextech in their kits as far as like with their stories, like to build up like their bodies or the way that they fight, like with Ezreal and Victor. And every time we talk about these, hextech is powerful.
Yes.
I mean, Ekko takes a fragment of a hextech core and breaks time. So the stuff is powerful. So with Powder dropping one little hextech fragment, blows up the whole freaking building on their way out. And that is exactly what they needed to do with the show to translate how powerful hextech is.
Yes, like we'll talk about at the end. They do a real good job moving through a lot very quickly, while giving you the proper glimpse at what things are. And one thing they had to show was after this explosion, the cops show up, as we know them, Wardens. The Wardens show up, and now we get a good old-fashioned street chase that leads us through topside into the sewers, which is, you know, the grungy part of Piltover still. And here's where we get a really well-coordinated street fight. Now, it's all animated. So when I explain this, I want you to understand that usually with choreography, you get something more polished. And, you know, it's just kind of, oh, this is just more of a fancy, hey, let's show off some kung fu or whatever, right? Martial arts. This is just kids fighting in the street, but not just any kids, kids who have grown up in the streets. I've seen fights like this before. And to the point where you have, you know, Vi at one point gets knocked into a wall. The kid gets knocked down by another kid. She grabs a piece of wood, breaks it off, hits that kid over the head, and then gets punched in the face. Like, it's very messy. And it's very extended too. It's a long scene as well.
Yeah, the fight lasted like significantly longer than I thought it would. I also liked that it is translating the fact that they're all street urchins.
Yes,
and it, because I was kind of ready for it to be, especially like the fight opens up with Vi doing Vi things of like, oh yeah, you smack talk. Here's a witty quip back and sucker punch.
Yeah.
And it's like from there, what we know of the champion is like the fight would be over. But instead it's very even fight. And that really kind of helps translate like the period of time. It's like, we know it's a younger Vi, but we now can see it's before Vi becomes just a punching machine. And one of the things that I noticed as far as here is that the crew does not know the kids that they're fighting except for Milo. Milo does call out the name of the leader of these kids that are fighting against them. So I'm assuming we're going to see more of him.
Yeah.
I have some notes here that we're going to touch on later.
Yep.
But yeah, like the fight was good.
Yeah. So we also learn here that Jinx is she's a small kid for her age, and she decides to take the loot and run rather than fight with them, since the rest of the kids are more brawlers, right? So she runs off, gets chased by one of the opposing kids, decides to throw her bag of stuff in the water and just take off in the other direction, not really thinking too much about it. And during that time frame, we do get a little glimpse into her techie side, where she's a mechanic or machinist of sorts, because she creates these little grenades that don't do much. They're cute, but they are functional, especially for someone her age making something like that, like that kind of contraption.
Yeah, and it's the only time so far that we've actually seen Powder act like Jinx.
Yes.
Like, because the thing that she pulls out, it's got a little mouse drawn on it, but otherwise, like the drawing, the shape of it looks like a flame chomper. Yep. I have it in my notes that it equals the flame chomp alpha test. Like that's how I've got it written down. But this is the only time, because otherwise it's Jinx running away from a fight.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely terrified, poops her pants when it's like the fight is, she's not fully run away from it, drops the loot so that she doesn't have to fight. And that's not the crazy girl we know.
And we get one more scene here to round out just how cool Vi is at this age. She's definitely the leader, by the way. She's the Red Ranger. Where one of the other kids pulls out essentially a knife, like a makeshift knife, and she just strolls up to him, gets real close, and is like, how do you think this is going to end type thing, right? Classic badass movie scene, but within the realm of these children. Very well directed, very well done. And he backs down. And that kind of gives us a sense that, okay, well, obviously he's not really a leader type, the other kid. He's doing something for someone else, which is alluded to. And they were trying to disrupt them for some reason. Why, right? That's the question. So to find out why, we head down to Zaun. The kids finally meet back up. They find out powder ditch the goods. They're not happy about it. They take the elevator down into Zaun, and we get our glimpse. We get, music. We get big pan shots. We get a brothel with a yordle outside.
I see here in your notes that as far as like I'm commenting as far as like on the soundtrack that is happening during this scene, and then I just see all caps yordle prostitutes. Priorities.
The title of our episode.
The title of the episode. Episode 1 of Arcane, Yordle Prostitutes. All Timos respond. But one of the things that we do get to see here, especially like with our previous episode, we went over Paint the Town comic, and one of the things that we talked a lot about is the fact that Ziggs and Heimerdinger in Paint the Town use glamours to disguise their Yordle appearances, and we don't see that in Zaun. It makes sense as far as in this scene that in Zaun the Yordles don't really care, because we know that that's where Teemo buys all of his shrooms.
Yeah.
Teemo's a regular, so and Teemo is buying shrooms. He probably doesn't care if he's seen as a Yordle or not. Yeah. So he probably opened the door. But we're yet to see if Piltover actually has a lot of the stigmas that we see in the comic, because we haven't seen Piltover much yet. This is our deep dive into Zaun, and then we get to hear that the place in Zaun that we end this montage into is the lanes.
Yes.
And who tells us about the lanes?
The lanes, well, Vander himself, who Vander we saw at the beginning, right, as more of a dangerous figure. Now he's here being more of a father figure, but also like a local badass. He's a bartender at the main bar there, and everybody kind of, is kind of, you don't mess with the bartender in the main bar in a seedy part of town. He's a respected person. And he's referred to, drumroll please, as the Hound of the Underground. Nod, nod, wink, wink. And we also say that because he has a piece of cloth or like a leather, not gauntlet, but it covers his forearm completely, and it's referenced a couple times visually.
It's like a bracer.
It's like a bracer. And it's like, what are you covering up? Hound of the Underground. We won't spoil it here.
Yeah. We're recording this the day of release, like hot off the press for the Netflix
we're doing this for
app.
you all.
And the reason I say that is because it's debuting on November 6th, which we just got out of Halloween. You can't fool us, Vander. Because either it's a League of Legends thing and you're about to start howling, or it's a zombie thing. And no, you're not coming in to the sanctuary. Like you stay outside with your kind now. You're one of them. All right. We're still in spook mode.
We're still in spook mode. We're very aware at the moment. But the scenes we do get from Vander are him with the children, which are great scenes because it makes you like the kids a lot more and respect him on how he deals with these kids as someone who also is street hardened. I put it here, and you guys have probably heard it before. Vander isn't the stepfather. He's the father that stepped up. And one thing we get to see is like there's a moment between him and Vi where he's kind of reprimanding her, but also letting her know, you're smarter than this. I've taught you, and they look up to you, so you got to be the Red Ranger. Like, that's who you are. And then later we get to see her have a talk with one of her, friends. With Milo. And she has a very Vander approach to the way she deals with him, where she's very firm, but lets him know that, we're looking out for each other, we're together, but we need to be smarter, right? Yeah, it's crazy how well this fucking episode is put together.
The dialogue's fantastic.
It's so good.
Like, if the dialogue wasn't written as well as it was, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. Yeah. But the dialogue's done so well. The only thing I have in my notes here, as far as for Vander and all these things, is long live Vander. Goddamn.
Yeah. They make you like him immediately.
Yes.
But we get another cameo. It's not just Vander. So Vander is trying to cover up for what the kids have done, because even though they thought it was, as children do, as it was just something, whatever, they were giving it a shot, right? Trying to make something of nothing. It turns out to be a bigger deal because They end up hitting something high profile. It's not revealed, but Vander decides, hey, I have some junk lying around. I'm going to go to the local pawn shop and see, also known as Benzo's, I think is what it's called, and see if what's the word on the street, right? Because Benzo would know.
And he is going to Benzo's because after his heart-to-heart with Vi, he is trying, he gets the answer from her of, hey, where'd you get this information?
Yeah.
And her tip was from the little man at Benzo's shop.
Yeah.
And so, even though like Zaun and Piltover are both big cities, clearly in the slums, there are certain people who know everybody and who've got eyes everywhere. And now Vander is going to go off and try to at least cover this up, because even if it wasn't a high profile place, they blew up a freaking building.
A very important building.
It turns out that it was a very important building, but no job is going to go, like no heist is going to go unnoticed if there's a freaking bomb going off. Like people are going to talk about the bomb.
Exactly.
So Vander's already heard about it before the kids get there. Like that is how that conversation opens up of like, hey, what have y'all been up to? Because I know.
and the fun part is, as this episode's, we're coming towards the end here. This episode's good enough, and then we get introduced to somebody that we all wanted to see. The little young Ekko. The
little man at Benzo's shop turns out to be a very little Ekko. And man, little Ekko is 100% what I wanted little Ekko to be.
Yeah.
He's an awkward kid that has way too much charisma to be as awkward as he is.
Yep.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Love it. Chef's kiss. 10 out of 10. End the show. All right. Drop Vi, drop Powder. Let's just follow Ekko. I'm on board.
And if you've listened to our Ekko episode, you'll know that he grows up to be a lot like Vi, especially the Vi we get represented here, which is great for consistency. And he makes a comment here, which is very important, that Vi taught him moves. Like she essentially taught him how to fight. And he shows it off to one of her partners here that's hanging outside while Vander's inside talking.
Because Vander does bring Clagger along with him to Benzo's shop. So we get to see here that Ekko knows Clagger. We then get to see that Vi has been teaching Ekko how to fight. And this is something that we three crafted in our Ekko episode. You can go back and check it out and listen to Past to Us talk about it when how little we knew, and
how young we were,
so naive. But we theory crafted this, like, hey, like how many of these street urchins are actually running around Zaun? Is there any way that Vi and Jinx and Ekko like knew each other, or at least ran within the same circles? And at least Arcane is now setting the stage that yes, they ran in the same circles. Because when Clagger and Ekko are calling each other by name, it's hard to argue it now.
Exactly. And then we get Wardens showing up again. And this time they're wearing gas masks, which is, that's something neat to know, is that it looks like when topsiders come down to Zaun, they wear a mask, which is very timely and scary. But listen, we won't go there right now. No real world. We're in Runeterra at the moment. All right. But yeah, they come down in mask and they meet up in the shop with Vander. And they're like, listen, we've interacted before. Something big is going on. I need a body. I need a... Edge puts on a mask. They're like, I need someone to place this blame on. Well, Vander's not going to give them that because that's his kids. So he's like, I can't help you. And the woman who kind of sends her subordinate out and talks to him, her name is Grayson, is what we're given, or Officer Grayson, I don't know if it's her last name. And one tidbit, and let us know if you hear the same thing when you watch this episode or when you watched this episode. It sounds like the voice of Anna from Overwatch. She's been doing a lot of voice work lately, and the voice is very similar.
Oh crap!
Yeah,
I did not pick up on that. I think
obviously
you're right.
The show, we literally just watched it; it just premiered, so there's not enough notes out there on who the full voice cast is.
Oh, we're gonna find it.
Let us know.
I'm gonna find it.
Maybe we're the first ones to put it out there in the ether.
We know. Now, as far as with the outside of getting to see the enforcers in their uniforms with the gas masks, and coming down into Benzo's shop. The rest of this scene is pretty much the same as every scene of a police officer speaking to a ne'er-do-well. And so and as far as with this scene, we get the vibe that this enforcer and Vander, they've worked together before.
Yeah.
Whether willingly or not, they know each other. And between a ne'er-do-well and a police officer, there's some trust. Like, it's not a real trust, but enough to, like, I'm gonna trust you to save your own skin quietly, and you can trust me to keep it quiet. So, like, otherwise, this scene, you've seen it before, and now it's the Wardens are like, okay, give us a call with any information you have, or we're gonna find that information, and you don't want us to find it. Yeah. And that's where that scene leaves off, and we go back to Vi checking in on Powder. And the thing that I have in my notes here as far as getting to see Powder's room, because like the first thing that pops up is just the outside of a window with a radio playing. And it is very much playing a weird, like, steampunky, like 100-year-old technology version of the music from, like, Jinx's reveal music video. And it's just like, oh, come on, Riot. Come on.
Easter eggs.
Y'all not even trying to hide these Easter eggs. You got them painted in neon. They glow in the dark, and you hit them under a black light. But I appreciate it. I'm still putting it in my basket. But this ain't much of an Easter egg.
Yeah, and this is at this point where I told Hetch, this show's gonna make me cry, right? Because we're in one episode, and watching how good of a big sister Vi is, and how good of a little sister Jinx is, and how good of a father Vander is, and knowing that this is the beginning of an escalation from what we know, that's going to be a painful journey. Congrats, right? Great. You made us. You're going to make us feel bad. I hope you're happy. But yeah, I'm planning on crying, and I'll let you guys know which episode that's on.
Because it's been at least 6 years of all of, like, League of Legends fans, or at least, like, the lore fans, theory crafting whether or not Vi and Jinx are truly sisters, or if they were just orphans that grew up together. We did all this theory crafting as far as what caused them to go down their separate paths, and this was a strong message to send as far as what they were like before what we know now. And they're gonna make you cry, Ryan.
We're gonna cry. So
facts
during
on
this
facts.
time, the sister heart to heart, she cheers up Jinx for essentially, just being herself. And she's like, listen, we're trying our best. Don't beat yourself up. We'll just keep getting stronger.
It's a very good message, despite the fact that it was really just a conversation of, like, don't listen to Milo's BS.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're a kid, you'll be fine. And then like, if the episode ended there, it'd be like a really exciting time as far as, like, hell yeah, Arcane. But we're gonna, before we can end, we have to figure out what had happened to those street urchins that attacked Vi. Then we get a flashback to Deckard, and Deckard is not doing so hot.
And right before we get that, the transition on that flashback's pretty cool, because Powder's like, hey, by the way, after the conversation, she pulls out of her pocket more hextech crystals, and then it transitions into the scene with him in the chair, and we get the reveal of Silco, who we know nothing about. This is a character who I have no knowledge of. I don't think Hetch has any knowledge of. I think this is a character that's probably introduced for the sake of the series to drive the plot. But he is related to whatever was happening topside. But he also is doing some animal experiments with neurochemicals, which is always a good time.
Always a good time.
Yeah.
So this whole scene is very interesting because one, we learn that Deckard was actually tailing Vi under Silco's request.
Yeah.
And so Deckard about just dies in this scene straight away because it's like, I told you to follow and not interfere.
Yeah.
So let's teach you about what happens to people who disobey me.
It's like they call me Silco. Listen, it's not Shaco, but I'll take it. It's close enough, and I'll take what I can get.
You filthy man. All right, welcome to a Shaco fan podcast. Yeah, so we first learned that Silco is trying to tail Vi, and it's because he knows they're connected to Vander. Deckard reveals that they were the kids were the ones that hit that building. They were responsible for that explosion, and Vander is trying to cover it up. Silco says, okay, our timeline got moved up. And the only response to our timeline getting moved up is that we then get to see this purple gaseous chemical getting fed to a mouse, and then a cat being fed to the mouse. End of episode. And that is a strong message already. Like, so many questions popping up because we know that somewhere along, like, Jinx and Vi are going to get tangled up with this guy because he's already got his eyes on the kids.
Yeah.
It's not even a thing of like it might happen later on. He's already watching them, so we know they're going to get tangled up. We already have theories thanks to the trailers that chemical is going to get mixed up with Jinx, and that's what happens to Jinx. But we don't know. But then, like, if you look at the rest of like Piltover and Zaun lore, characters like Warwick and even characters outside of Piltover and Zaun whose like makers' origins are from there, like Mundo and Warwick and Singed, like they all deal with gaseous,
they're a little
chemical
bit twisted
stuff. Get out of here. No, I'm leaving.
And just left. But yes, so it's a great scene to wrap it up. And then the final comment we hear before it fades to black and then gives us, title card / credits is Silco's right-hand man, or whoever this scientist guy is, like, are you ready to do experiments on someone? You got anybody in mind? He's like, yeah, I got somebody in mind. And then we get a cut there. And that's the end of the episode. So where this leaves us is we got to go watch episode 2. What do you think this was? Like, we're not going to. So Hetch and I are going to do something very dangerous. On a scale of 5, this episode, what do you give it? I'll go at first. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. This is how you do a first episode for this. Because this had to be nerve-wracking to be like, how do we start this off? And I think they absolutely nailed it. Music, art, story, lines, voice acting, animation, everything.
Yeah. Unbiased opinion. 5 out of 5. Like, this is exactly what you want. I can't wait until we say goodnight and get off of this so I can watch episode 2. So good job. That's what you want in episode 1 to do.
Yeah.
Biased opinion, 4 out of 5. I hate the art.
Understandable. And we'll get into that.
The art.
We'll get into that in a different episode. But for now, as always, thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon with the next Arcane episode.
Yes, episode 2. Take care, everybody.